Hey everyone, thank you for tuning into Real Inspection Services Podcast. This is your host, Chuck Ryan, here to discuss all things regarding your home and the home inspection industry. So hello again everyone, this is Chuck Ryan. I have a special guest here today, Marta Romeo. She is one of our inspectors as well as a realtor. And what we're going to discuss here today is both sides of being a realtor and a home inspector, especially in a male dominated industry. I'm referring to the home inspection industry. So, Marta, welcome.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me.
So, tell me a little bit about the challenges that you had seen when you decided to become a home inspector, the pros and cons with it, but more of what you have observed since you have been a home inspector. And how long have you been a home inspector?
I've been a home inspector now for 2 years. I have worked in the industry, real estate industry, for the past 12 years. I'm coming from a background with working with developers, investors. So I was always intrigued how a house worked, how everything worked. So I basically kind of learned, I followed all the other inspectors that I have used myself for my clients. And I have learned a lot just from them, following them and asking them questions. Why I got into the business myself is I've noticed there's no women inspectors in the field at all. I knew I'm gonna get some backlash, and also just like, you know, knowing that people in my industry are gonna be mostly male, it's gonna be male dominated and, older. I knew I'm gonna have hard time, but I've been doing this for 2 years. It's been great. I've actually have learned a lot from the real inspection services and L inspectors here. There's definitely pros and cons. Pros are I feel like the only female around in my field here, not only, but in the area where we work at. And I feel strongly that there's going to be more and more females come into the industry. So I feel like that's a big pro. A lot of real estate agents, especially female, especially like the ones with the big teams of women, they will want to use a female inspector, I think, versus, a male. So I think that I'm going the right direction here. Just want to show all the females out there that it's not that hard, and yeah, you will put up with some, you know, negativity and
Masculinity stuff.
masculinity stuff. I don't want to discourage anybody, but definitely would still recommend that.
Well, no, that's good. So, full disclosure, Marta's been with us for about a year and a half now, approximately.
uh
Has it been
about a year.
about a year?
Yeah.
So, and we're just very happy that she's part of our group.
Thank
Well,
you. Me too.
yeah, we are, and have done a wonderful job doing home inspections, and then juggling being a realtor and a mom as well. And we just, I know work can become a challenge because I've seen the knock in our industry. It's the good old boys club, and I remember when I joined or became an inspector, I was 29 years of age. I was like the youngest guy in going to these meetings and then looking around the room. And I thought to myself, is this the right thing I should be doing? But I stuck with it. And obviously, it has paid off. But we are starting to see more females come into our industry. I think it's a great thing. Uh, Tired of the old boys club. We would like to start seeing younger people come into the industry. You don't have to be, in your mid 40s or 50s or 60s with gray hair to get involved. It's just
Right.
an industry that is rewarding as well. And I think newer, younger people can see that. And with you being involved, yeah, it's a good shout out for women to come into an industry. And I do see where it is a challenge, being that it is male dominated. But yeah, I just think it's just something that we need. And I do
Absolutely.
agree with you about that. We've actually gotten some positive feedback with realtors, male and female, saying it's awesome. Especially
Oh, that's
working
great.
that you've been on these inspections for. So, in fact, I think I remember
That's amazing.
we just had a call the other day where we got some great feedback on an inspection we did out in Darien, where you were a part of that. So,
Yes, I remember the inspection. It was a
s-
good one.
so share with the listeners the how you are able to juggle being a realtor and being an inspector, and then for what would be a good way for a young woman to get involved into the industry. Maybe give some information about that. What how you started that.
Yeah. So number one thing, if you have, a family, have great support system back at home. That's number one thing. Have a partner that supports you, have maybe family members or, help to help out with like the day-to-day things, trusting that everything will be okay if you're not around, right? Um, yes, I got into it, and it is still a struggle, still working on it. My routine is I wake up at like 6 or before 6 a.m. every morning. Do not look at my phone until I drop the kids off at school. So I get back home, I do my thing, I prep for the day, I do my to-do list, and basically go from there. Then I start replying to my emails, phone calls. And if I do have an inspection in the morning, I try not to take any calls if I don't have to during inspections, right? And then basically set standards like with my clients, like my real estate side. If I meet with a client, say, hey, I do inspections, I do have, a family. Just be clear right up front. Be like, hey, this is when I'm going to be able to talk to you or answer any calls or emails. Set the expectations, right? And my clients know, and everybody respects it. Be upfront and honest. I still sometimes struggle. So I get home at like 4 or 5, make dinner. And then I say, hey, kids, like, do whatever you do. I put them on TV, or sometimes I just let them like play by themselves for an hour and basically say, hey, I'm going to go work for my office for a little bit. And then I come back, put them to bed, and then I still work after they go to sleep sometimes. So yeah, it's a struggle because I do work a lot and never around on the weekends because that's when I do my open houses really and take my clients out, but it's worth it. It's paying off. I've been doing this for 12 years as a real estate agent and then 2 years with inspections. And yeah, beginnings are always hard, but I strongly encourage young women to get into business and stick with it. There's so many times in my career that I was like, I'm going to quit. That's it. I'm done. Or I would get frustrated on inspection because I didn't know something and I asked one of the guys and they were like, well, you should know this.
And they
So
still
I would
do
get,
that to new
yes,
guys coming into to the industry. And I am not a fan of some of these groups that are on Facebook, because some of these guys, it's just when you hear the responses of someone just asking a simple question and then the feedback that they give them is negative, I just can't stand it. I mean, we should be here to support and help each other. And,
I
you
agree.
know, for me, the only thing that separates me from maybe a know-it-all in our industry is that guy wears that Superman T-shirt and that they know everything and they're the end-all be-all of the home inspection industry. And I have no tolerance for those guys. So,
Yes.
but you brought up an important point where you were talking about expectations.
Hmm.
And I thought that was a good point, is because we have to set expectations when we start inspections, correct?
Correct.
So when we show up on the property, we will do whatever they call it, the driveway pitch, where we introduce ourselves to the client
Yeah,
and we let them know how the process is for the home inspection. And I think that that's important
yeah,
because sometimes along the way, the expectations or what is perceived sometimes gets lost.
I agree.
And so I think that was a good thing that you had pointed out. So doing a home inspection, and to just maybe give some of the female listeners an idea, is the job physical?
Yes.
Okay. So Physical meaning that you have to.
I mean, I still have to, bring a ladder. I still have to crawl in crawl spaces, go on top of roofs. I have to be sometimes uncomfortable and like squeeze through places, just to get to something to do a good inspection. So yes, you do have to be physical. But it's nothing like out of the ordinary, like a ladder could be like, up to 20 pounds, whatever. Like you pick up your kids, right? Like, I mean, or your dog, right? Like there could be heavy. So it's kind of like that. Honestly, I like it because I get my workout. If I have to climb, a 4-story building, without an elevator, with a ladder, guess what? That's my workout for the day.
Yeah, especially carrying that ladder up and
And a
then your
bag.
tools,
Yeah, my
right?
tools, right.
Yes, it is a good workout.
Yeah.
That's for
And
sure.
I don't mind it. I like it.
Good,
Yeah.
good.
I'm not afraid. I don't mind going up on roofs. I'm not scared of crawling in creepy crawl spaces. I don't, it doesn't face me.
So the other thing is, and I think we can share this too with the listeners, is you're bilingual, right?
Yes.
So that has a huge plus,
Correct.
especially in our industry as well, because I know when people call in, they'll ask, "Do we have anyone that speaks Spanish, Polish?"
Right.
So I know that helps. So maybe
Yeah.
share a little bit about how that's helped you with growing your real estate business, as well as how it can help in the inspection industry as well.
Yeah. So I grew up in the Polish community. I grew up in Poland, and I came here. And in Chicago, specifically in Chicago, there's a lot of Polish people. There's a huge Polish community. So
So I got a question.
yeah.
So being that we do have a huge Polish community, they say that there's just as many Polish citizens here or people from Poland that is just the equivalent of what is in
Warsaw.
Warsaw. Is that
I
true?
mean,
I mean, it
as
said
of
it's a
2
million
years ago,
people.
yes, that was correct.
Okay.
I haven't checked the stats recently, but yeah, that is true. Yeah, there's just a lot here and New York too, but Chicago is it's like the hub. Yeah, so it helped me tremendously when it came to like, especially like when I just started out, like like I grew up in Polish neighborhood in Chicago, so I had a lot of Polish friends. From high school. So that's how they started me off in the industry. I was like, hey, if you ever need to sell a house. And they were like, yeah, I know so and so. And my mom doesn't speak English, but you speak Polish. So let's work together. So that's how I started off. So this did help me tremendously. And I feel like the only thing that I need to learn now is Spanish because I have a lot of clients that are calling me and they think because of my last name that I speak Spanish.
You speak two languages. I
Yeah.
speak one. My wife is Polish.
Yeah.
So it's like,
No.
when are you going to learn the language? And I only know the bad words. I don't know.
We'll teach you. We'll teach you.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
Okay.
But yeah, it definitely helps.
So when you decided to get involved in the home inspection industry, were there any home inspectors that you looked at? And I know you and I know BJ Brzezinski.
Yes, I worked with BJ.
He is a great guy. He's a very knowledgeable inspector. I know he comes from a construction background, and he's just been a good friend as well.
Yeah,
So
and he's been very encouraging. He's like, "Yeah, go do it." I told him about it. He's like, "Yeah, you'll be great at it." He's like, "You don't have to follow me anymore."
yeah, so maybe share a little bit about that when you had said that maybe you don't have to follow me anymore. So now with your knowledge of the home inspection industry, do you feel that that's an asset for you for being a realtor, what to look for when you're looking at those homes with your potential buyers?
Absolutely, absolutely. Whenever I mention in my buyer consultation that I'm an inspector, everybody just lights up and they're like, "Oh, this is great. I'm a first-time home buyer. I have no idea about anything about how the house works." So whenever I go to my first time like showings with them, I basically point things out to them and I'm like, "Oh, this might be a problem," or we should ask about this. So they're like amazed. They're like, "Oh my gosh, we would never even think about asking about that." So it's an asset. It does help me a lot, especially with first-time home buyers. They know that I will know what to look for.
Yes, I think that's cool because one of the things, especially when we do the in-office presentations with realtors, I always thought to myself, the more knowledge they have, the better information that they can provide to their sellers as well as buyers of looking at an electrical panel, maybe getting the information saying, hey, this house has 100 amps, looks like it's dated, versus this house has 200 amps. It looks like it's been updated. This might be more suitable for you. And so don't you kind of agree that
Yeah.
more information is
More is
better?
better.
Right.
100%. Yep.
Right.
I feel like we should, as inspectors, we should educate, you know, the real estate industry just so they know, so they have more knowledge.
So we're generalists, right?
Yes.
So we know a lot about the way a home works.
Right.
And obviously, if we find a condition, we refer to it, if it's a plumbing issue, to a qualified plumber or an electrical contractor, a qualified electrical contractor. So,
Absolutely. Yeah, I feel like it's great. There's, and a lot of agents have their vendors too. So like if an inspector says, hey, this will be need to be repaired, they'll say, oh, I have a guy, I have a person. And if they don't, we as a company, we can also refer people that we've worked with. It's a great relationship,
it is. Well, and that's the whole thing, relationships, right? Building relationships with your clients as well as when we do a home inspection.
Right.
And it's just something that it's all based on
Yeah.
trust and making them feel comfortable about the whole buying process and selling process. Do you see in our industry where it's going to change, where we're going to start to do more pre-listing inspections?
Absolutely.
And can you explain to the listeners what a pre-listing inspection might entail versus a normal home inspection?
Yes. So basically, a pre-listing inspection will consist of telling the seller, potential seller, what they should be on a lookout or what they need to fix before listing the house, because that will pop up an inspection. So why not just fix it now? If I go on a listing inspection, I do it for my clients. I just go in and I say, hey, I'm going to check your roof, your windows, your mechanicals, and tell you what shape they're in, so for the future. Basically, they can fix it right away, or they don't have to, but I always recommend that they do. So I do like a list, and sometimes I take pictures and I send it to them. Hey, so for reference, this is what you will need to look out for before we list. It's great because then whoever comes to buy that house, they're amazed on how clean and well maintained the house is and how well put together everything was. So they'll get a better offer right away.
And I think that's the key thing, right? The less time it's on
Mhm.
the market from the time it goes
Right.
to the market to the time.
Exactly.
It's not saying the buyer wouldn't do a home inspection, right?
Right.
But at least all the major components are taken care of, basically.
I cannot stress enough how important it is to get a professional inspection. Whenever you're on a buy side and you have a client, doesn't matter if they're knowledgeable, doesn't matter who they are, I always recommend that they get a professional inspection done, period.
So one of the things that I've seen in the industry over the years is, and we really haven't had much of this, where they'll bypass an inspection because they can't miss out on this home, or it's just they're afraid they're going to lose the home to another potential buyer. And I think one of the biggest disadvantage of doing something like that is they buy the home, they don't do a home inspection, and then all of a sudden they have a major component in the house go wrong, and that can cost them a lot of money out of pocket. So it's
Right.
always better to be proactive than
Yes.
reactive. And I think sometimes it gets lost. And to save several hundreds or maybe $1,200 on an inspection, I think that just is a disadvantage because that can cost them maybe double that by not having an inspection. Do you agree with that?
I agree 100%. And I know the market is hot right now and it's a little bit crazy. There's a lot of people that will waive their inspections. They will waive their appraisals. They will waive everything just to get that house. For my clients, I don't waive inspections. I always tell them, you can take it as is. You still have the inspection. You could always back out. You can always ask for major components to be fixed.
So what I've seen in our industry, and we do have this part of what we do as an ancillary service, we offer the sewer scopes. I think that's one of the biggest things that sometimes gets overlooked during a transaction. They they bypass the sewer scope. Can you kind of explain to the listeners what a
Yes.
sewer scope is? I call it the colonoscopy for your home, which
Yes.
is that's
It's pretty
basically what
it's
it
well
is.
put. Yeah, pretty much that's what it is. You wanna make sure, that your sewer pipes is not cracked or leaking anywhere, or it's not totally blocked by roots. When that happens is, you don't know, right? If you move in and then all of a sudden you're like, "Oh, it's not draining properly. That's okay." But then you go to check it and it's like a whole sewer is cracked somewhere and it's goes to be like 12 to $17,000 repair. What if you have to rip out your floors and your walls in the basement? You don't know that. That's why it's very important to get that checked out. I had an inspection done on a beautiful house, but the sewer scope came back with the 2 cracks, huge cracks in the sewers. The sewers were just, the line was old. And so guess what? It was $17,000 ticket that we had the seller pay it. They did. I'm so glad we did that.
Can you imagine if they didn't do
Right,
that? They had a party, someone's using the restroom,
right.
something happens. So that's one of the things we always educate the buyer. And sometimes they pass on it, but at least in our report, we let them know, hey, we discussed this. We're still going to put it in the report that we offered the sewer scope. We still think that this should be done within the attorney approval period. And it's kind of up to them, right? We've
Absolutely.
educated them on that and they decided to go a different route.
Yeah, and I love that we also do environmental studies. So like the mold, and if we do radon, I always refer everybody from my side to renal inspections, just because if you're in the suburbs, guess what? Chances are that there might be radon, right? If you're buying an older house, guess what? There might be mold. You don't want to be stuck with that and with the bill later on.
And the thing with mold, since you brought it up, is that most conditions with mold is related to moisture. And that's something that can be easily corrected as long as a source of moisture has been identified, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Right.
And majority of the mold that we typically would see would be where?
And the attic.
Yeah, up in the attic. And usually that's due lack of ventilation. A lot of factors play into that, insulation and as well as air seal, meaning that we
Yeah.
don't want the air from the house dumping up in the attic. And if it gets trapped up there, it's got nowhere to go.
Yeah.
So
And you'll be surprised, like even the new constructions, they just basically cut corners, and then you go in the attic and they're decided to vent the bathroom vent into the attic and the brand new construction.
So let's talk about new construction because we were on a new construction yesterday, and that is something we get pushback on too. Not all builders, but there's a handful of builders, especially some of these bigger companies that build these homes, is that there's warranties that come with the home. And one of the things that they tell the buyer is it's brand new. But we found doing these home inspections that there are deficiencies there and it can be fixed. But why not bring it to the buyer's
Attention.
attention to let them know that, hey, here's a list that the home inspector put together and we just want these things fixed. I've seen or I've heard just in the past, as of lately, with doing a new construction inspection, it's just that sometimes people want to get that, just leave it alone. And do you find that who's responsible for that? Is that information not being shared to the potential buyer to let them make that choice to do a home inspection on a new construction? Because who cares if it comes with warranties, right? If they move into their home and the subfloor is squeaking, or there could be a cracked floor joist in the basement, there might be a crack in the foundation that was overlooked. We've seen all these things with new
Right.
construction. And do you get that? Do you get that from builders giving people pushback on why you're doing a home inspection?
Yes, a lot. I do. Just they're like, oh, we're going to give you a 1 year warranty and everything. But then I'm like, do you have that everything in writing? Every single corner of your house? No, you don't. I had that happen to me. bought a brand new house and they didn't have an inspection because they did get a warranty. And a whole sump pump just went out. And they were like, oh, well, we can replace sump pump. But it wasn't the issue. It was the sewer line that had an issue. And it was a $6,000 fix. And they had to take the developer to court.
So
They didn't want to fix it.
So with the new construction, we have seen that. We were getting pushed back on one once
Right.
where we were doing a sewer scope. And what had happened is as they were compacting and filling back the dirt and the earth around where the sewer line was installed, it was offset. It was offset from where the house went outside, maybe about 10 feet. And had they not done a sewer scope, that would have been overlooked. The contractor that built the home, his attitude changed a little bit during
Right.
that because we were able to bring him in and show him where it had offset. So it saved that buyer the headache because some sections of the concrete in the walkway had to be torn up
Right.
to fix that repair. So
That's pricey.
yeah. And we've also seen in sewer lines where sometimes debris inadvertently gets caught in there,
Right.
right? So how do you get it out of there? So
Yeah.
it's important.
Yeah, I agree. Get the inspection, no matter what the developer or builder says.
Just generally, all in all, get a home inspection,
Correct.
especially with the way the market is going
Correct.
in this direction. I know there's lack of inventory out there right
Yes.
now, but we have seen an uptick in sales of homes, and the rates are not the best, but
No, they're
historically they're not.
They're not.
They're not.
Historically, they're still low.
They're still low. Historically, they are.
And they're not going to go below, fives anytime soon. So people just need to get used to the new norm, and still go out there and buy homes. And sellers need to move on.
Right. You still have to live.
Yeah.
I think they were talking about several changes in the that we're going to have several rate drops, and we really haven't had that. I think they were predicting 3 by now, and here we are in March. I'm sorry, 2, but we're in March, and
Now they're keep pushing it. So they're just, I could go on. That's another subject. But
Right.
yeah, I think there'll be 2 at least this year.
So we're about to wrap up here. If you can just give me, just again, the listeners, a young lady wants to get into the industry, whether she wants to be a realtor or a home inspector, what would be your advice to give them?
Go for it. Don't be afraid. Don't be scared. Ask questions and go out there and kick butt.
That's great. And that's what you're
Don't
doing.
quit.
Well, that's what you're doing with us. And
Yes.
we do appreciate you very much.
I appreciate you guys as well.
We will have you back again, obviously. And again, thanks for joining the podcast.
Thank you. It was lovely to talk to you.
Thank you again for tuning in to Real Inspection Services podcast. If you have any questions regarding your home or our services, please reach out to us at realinspectionservices.com. If you would like us to answer any of your questions on the podcast, send us a DM on Instagram at Real Inspection Services. All info is down below in the show notes.